Let me first correct you. Were you there when I said that? Okay, then what did I say? Okay, so you're claiming that I said we're going to impeach the president. I floated the idea of impeachment. Okay, so you're wrong. So if you record, go back and watch. I said impeachment inquiry. There is a big difference. And let me explain it because maybe not everybody understands it. What impeachment inquiry does when you vote on the floor, it gives you the apex of power of Congress. If they do not provide the information we need, then we would go to an impeachment inquiry. Impeachment inquiry, which simply is an investigation and providing Congress the power to do that investigation. So I'm glad you asked a question that I could clarify that you misinterpreted and misstated.
Whoo! That's how you reject a media narrative, Tim Scott. Welcome back to the program. Dana Lash here with you, top of this third hour. That's Kevin McCarthy, who I thought did a very good job of stopping that false, dishonest framing in its tracks and resetting it with the proper perspective. And, of course, he's talking about the impeachment of, I mean, goodness, now, who are we? Who really doesn't stand to be impeached at this point? Right. Garland, Mayorkas, Becerra, Biden. Yep. I mean, who doesn't at this point? Now, a couple of things, because I'm going to play Rand Paul's soundbite here in a moment. I disagree with Rand Paul, but at the same time, I also understand one of the points that he's making. So what Kevin McCarthy is saying is very different from what Democrats did with Trump. McCarthy, you know what he's talking about there? It rhymes with schmavestigation. Something that Democrats did not do. Because normally, when you have this impeachment process, I don't know. I mean, they literally impeached him without a criminal charge. They're just like, we don't like you. Impeach. And that's literally what it was. If you read the official printout, it is, we tell I don't like him. That was it. There wasn't a charge. They just didn't like him. That's never happened. So what McCarthy's talking about is not doing what Democrats did, which was dumb down and weaponize the impeachment process. Make it a cheap parlor trick. Make it this thing where if anybody doesn't like somebody, oh, we don't like what you did, impeach, impeach, impeach. It's not meant to be thrown around like, rice at a wedding. There's supposed to be a point to it. And you're supposed to have an investigation and you hear the evidence and then you go, Democrats skipped all of that. They skipped over all of it and they went, nope, just impeach him. So what McCarthy's talking about is, well, we don't want to defecate all over the Constitution the way that they did. So we're actually, because unlike with Trump, there actually is evidence here. I mean, there's oodles of it, oodles of evidence, lots of receipts. They're going to do their investigation, get together their evidence, and then have a hearing, which just pause for a moment on that point. A hearing before an impeachment, you have the investigative process, and all of the information that so far has been broken up into little bitty bites, into tiny, 1 day here, 2 day here, 3 day here, different hearings over the span of several years, all together in one thing. Wow. Ken, that's $1 billion video with a B. And it would just be pummeling. That's what he's talking about doing. Then having your impeachment trial. And there's, without saying it, and I'll give him this credit, he's also understanding that there's a little bit, you got to also have the court of public opinion on your side. Not that they don't, but a lot of people, I don't think y'all realize, you all know everything that is going on with all of this down to the itemized list. Not everybody does. Because not everybody pays attention to everything like you guys do. So there are people who literally, I am not even kidding you. I had a conversation with someone last week who literally did not know about the books in the schools. And it wasn't, and they were kind of a moderate. It was just, we were out and we ran into a friend of a friend. We were talking. they were, a moderate, but they're not like a mean moderate. They're just kind of like bopping along in life, like, yeah. They heard stuff about books in school, but they thought, oh, it's probably just political arguing. She literally did not know. And she was like, what do you mean, like pornographic? I'm like, you really? And it was a quick conversation. I mean, I think we were there for like 20 minutes and everybody was talking to, somebody else. And I'm like, oh gosh, I can't believe I'm doing this. I pull up my phone, a quick Google search. And I mean, she was aghast. She was like, oh, well, surely that's not in the school. I'm like, no, it's in the school. Well, surely it's just like listed like in their database or something, not actually in the shelves. And I'm like, actually a woman that we both know, her child pulled it off the shelf in middle school down the street from us, brought it home. That's how the story on this book broke. And then they found out they were literally on the shelves of all these schools, not just in this list in a database. She was like, oh my gosh. A lot of people, like I said, they just don't pay attention to all this stuff. So having the court of public opinion like that is priceless. And it's such a long way because you owe that to the American people. If you're going to drag them through an impeachment proceeding, you owe them that process. The American people were robbed of that process because there was no evidence. What are they going to do? Let's look at Exhibit A. Nothing. Exhibit B. Nothing. Nothing. So I get what he's saying. Let's play this Rand Paul clip because this is what he was talking about. Rand Paul, when he was asked about impeachment. And let's play this first. Let's listen to his soundbite here. He was asked specifically on this.
It's not good for the republic to keep impeaching presidents and indicting presidents. Yeah. All of this stuff is destructive. The other side says, they're for preserving democracy. They're pitting everyone against each other and they're destroying the fabric of our republic. So I think we have to be careful not to fall into the same trap.
I understand what he's saying there. He's not saying don't do it, but he's saying you got to be careful about falling into the same trap. But luckily for him, that's not what's happening because there's actual evidence. And they're talking about honoring the full process. So I get it. There's a process to it. I'll lean back on John Adams for a moment. There's a reason why the process is important. Even Washington understood this. Back when the Crispus Attucks, the first fatality in the American War of Independence, with the Boston massacre in the square. There were those British soldiers that, in order to fully settle it, there needed to be an actual trial, and they needed representation. And the colonists at the time were like, no, we all know you're guilty. We're not doing any of that. Let's go. They wanted to hang them up immediately. But John Adams and some of the other founders realized that there was they were at a very careful point. Because one of the cornerstones of our republic is due process. You are afforded due process. You are afforded your day in court. You are afforded, you can defend yourself against your accusations. You're presumed innocent until proven guilty. And he understood that for a nation that was striking out on its own, not only for the nation to be taken seriously, but for the nation to take itself seriously, and for the people to actually take the nation seriously, and really the republic, you got to practice what you preach. Do you really stand for these principles or not? And so he defended them. And this is one of my favorite stories at the very beginning of the revolution, or the War of Independence, because he realized the importance of it. Now, he doesn't like the British. I mean, it's John Adams. Come on. But he loved the Republic. He didn't like the British. He loved the Republic. He didn't like what they did. He thought it was abhorrent. But he loved due process and the principles that the Republic espoused and stood for. And he realized, you can't put out the light that is the beacon of liberty that quick. And so he defended them. And so I kind of apply that here. As much as we dislike the Bidens, and as much as we dislike, I hate this 2 tiers of justice, there's something to be said. I love the Republic more than I loathe them. And I love them a lot. But I love the Republic and I love our principles. And it has to take that kind of adherence to principles, because if we don't, then they're lost. I mean, at this point, the republic survives as long as we are willing to honor it. It's a harsh reality.